Alright guys, such coming here and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The OpTic Scrims going down again last night. Shotzzy and Mercules turning their streams on pretty much out of nowhere, but two big scrim sets. They played the Ravens, they played the Minnesota Rocker, and certainly some interesting talking points. OpTic found it pretty hilarious, the way the Ravens are approaching one of these overload situations. OpTic clearly the best overload team in the game right now, but that does not mean that some of their other competitors shouldn't be quite this bad. Plenty to talk about, very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. We're going to start here. Yesterday we talked a fair bit about the state of Call of Duty, why Black Ops 7, despite being a good multiplayer game, I think most of us would say, compared to some of the recent ones, that is for sure, it's not really delivered. Is that because Activision keep pushing out a game every single year? That's definitely had a part to play in the downfall of CoD, or whatever you want to say. I think, as many of you guys are pointing out in the comments, the reality is, you know, they want us to pay $70, $80, like whatever it even is nowadays, for these games every single year. You know, the special packs are like $100+. And yet, in addition, then there's the microtransactions and all that stuff that's going on. So, you know, the model is effectively what a lot of the free-to-play games have nowadays in terms of microtransactions. But you've still got to pay for the game out the box, and to do so for Black Ops 6 and Black Ops 7 back-to-back is probably just not going to happen, in the same way that for Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, it was to some extent a similar story, even though those second games are actually pretty damn good in both cases. So Activision pretty much said, we're going to stop that. We're going to find another way to approach it. Doesn't mean they're not going to release a game every year. Look, we talked about this years ago, the possibility of them moving away from yearly releases. It never felt likely just because it's an insane cash cow. But it's probably got to a point where they've got to consider what the future of CoD looks like in that sense. The other piece, of course, is because BO7 isn't really delivering, some of the budget for the post-launch content is gone. Now, probably not going to be relevant for the competitive scene. Likely Season 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think Ghost to Hope says. They're probably still going to have plenty of content. So for the next couple of months, certainly in terms of when the maps that might get added, the other things that might get added are going to be relevant to be included in the CDL. More than likely, we're still going to get a load of that stuff. But we might not get some of the stuff further down the line, potentially. But we'll see. We should still have plenty of maps to play with over the coming months. I think we certainly may well need it over time as well. This, though, is TJ Halley. He's on stream. We see a Peacekeeper in action. Now, can you believe it? TJ's streaming from a non-pitch black room where you can actually see stuff in the background. He's got his face cam on, absolute scene. So TJ was on the grind. There was quite a lot happening yesterday. ZooMaa was talking a bit as well. We know that he's struggling with his internet and has been in LA for some time. He mentioned that he's probably going to be leaving LA. He said that he's maybe thinking about Orange County, not moving to Texas necessarily, but getting out of LA. We know that ZooMaa's been having his beef with LA for quite a few years at this point. He was also talking about a tournament that he's trying to run, and I'll share these couple of clips for you guys in a second. But he reached out to a number of pros, so not all 48 pros, but he reached out to a representative from every team, presumably the GA rep or whatever, just whoever he usually speaks to from each team, or whoever is considered kind of the team captain, I suppose. He reached out to them and said, hey, you know, looking to run this tournament, probably over Christmas, New Year. What are you thinking? Now, ZooMaa goes on to clarify that actually this tournament is, you know, he's trying to get all the CDL teams together for this, a proper full CDL teams, and run a proper tournament. Presumably that wasn't clear in his initial message, but still, pretty much all the pros just ghosted him. And pretty outrageous in my opinion. Even if the pros had been told by ZooMaa, okay, hey, we're looking to do these dates, and we're going to get all the pro teams, this is the prize pool, maybe he would have got more responses, and hopefully he will now. But still, even if ZooMaa's like, hey, I'm trying to run this tournament, you know that ZooMaa's serious about these type of things. He doesn't mess around. These aren't just like stupid tournaments. And also, there's absolutely going to be good money on the line. So regardless, you should probably, I don't know, hit him back. And the only player that actually did it was Dan Ghosty. So Dan Ghosty always on point with this type of stuff. So hopefully ZooMaa, Ben J, the others trying to organise this tournament actually get a response, right? Because it's like, come on, you're offering these guys opportunity to play a tournament for some money. Surely they should be frothing at the bit to do so. It's interesting. We did see some 8s yesterday. I think at least the players are grinding a little bit to a degree. We usually see this in the early part of games regardless, but it's just been a key talking point over the last few years. You know, the paycheck league or whatever. Teams effectively, the players are just here for a paycheck. They're not necessarily here to be the best version that they could possibly be and try and win tournaments. Some pros aren't like that. Some pros do grind a fair bit, but, you know, the 8 scene often dies down, the players just scrim and then they, you know, watch Netflix or whatever, right? You know how it goes. Now, you could maybe not excuse it, obviously, it's their job, and if I was an organisation owner, I wouldn't, but some of the arguments has been, well, the game over the last few years hasn't been great, don't really blame them not for playing 8s and grinding pubs or whatever, because the game's not been good. But this year's game, pretty much all the pros are in agreement that it's pretty damn good. Certainly they're having more fun on it than they have for the last few years. So it's kind of, there are no excuses not to be playing it and putting in the additional hours, I think. There were some 8s going down. Pretty remarkable scoreboard here, actually. The reason why the engagement is so high is because someone joined the lobby mid-map, and when that happens, the respawn delay disappears. So they played an exposure with an insane amount of engagement. 04 was 55 in 44. You're not going to see that every day. So look, if you took the respawn delay off, these are the type of numbers that you would be seeing. It's a pretty wild scoreboard, and this is a 250-182. This is not a 250-249, right? So 04 nearly had 100 engagements in a map. Abe wasn't too far away either among some of the others. So yeah, pretty impressive, I thought. Not going to see a scoreboard like that every single day on this title. But a couple of other things that we've got to talk about, certainly on the OpTic side, because, well, the streams were back on for the scrims. Great to see, again, OpTic actually doing this. The other teams will maybe not hop on board in the near future, but OpTic are the best team in the game right now. They are still willing to stream some of their practice. Yesterday they had sets against G2 and Carolina. So G2, they played them at the weekends, right? Last weekends. They beat them 3-1. The first map they lost, as we know, on the Scar. Then they bounced back with a Mercules masterclass on the Raid Search and Destroy. Then things got even better from there. It was also good to see Raid in action, just because Raid's been removed from the hardpoint pool. There's no black cards, and somebody goes, well, like, why is there no black card right now? Since the latest patch update, something broke on Blackheart. We're not really sure what, and they just removed it from the game entirely. So the players can't even play on it. Presumably it's coming back, but the way that the CDL announced it was like, well, Blackheart's gone from the game. We're not going to replace it in the map sets, with the presumption that it was going to be back for this weekend. But here we are Thursday, and as it stands, there's no announcement that Blackheart's back in the game yet. So, yeah, all a little confusing, especially when they could have put something else in the map pool instead. Raid was crying out to be used, potentially, but that's not what they decided to do. At least it's good to see Red getting played in Search and Destroy. There was quite a lot of talk, oh, Raid, it plays so different now in Search because of the snipers and these other things. And, you know, I get that. The movement does change the way that it's played. Some of the things you can do around Zigzag are very different to what you could do back in the day. But it is still Raid, right? And snipers were also used on Raid back in Black Ops 2, for example. Not in Cold War, because they were banned in that game for the first time ever. But Black Ops 2, they were certainly used. There was all sorts of stuff that you could do. But they played the Ravens, they played G2. This was a clip I had to share because it's just too funny, really. So we know that OpTic are considered the best Overload team in the game right now. They start up the second half here against the Ravens. They're up 2-1. Shotzzy runs up mid. He picks up the device, and he just runs it straight down to their portal and gets a cap. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but Shotzzy found this hilarious because he said before the round that he was going to try this. Because he just, I don't know, felt like watching these guys play that they were playing for map control as if someone wasn't just going to go and pick up the device and run it straight in. But yeah, it just feels a little bit strange that here we are in, you know, the few weeks into the CDL now, and we've got a pro team. I mean, you could play ranked and Shotzzy wouldn't get away with this, right? So they must have their theories as to what they're doing. But I'm not really sure where the lads went, really, because they tried to spread the map and Shotzzy just runs up mid and runs it straight into the portal. So, yeah, Shotzzy couldn't really believe that one.
Tournament with that guy. You know what I mean? Also, yo, Ben, you know that tournament we were going to do with a sponsor that we were talking about? I'm thinking about doing no sponsor. Let's do full teams. I'll put the money up myself. What are you thinking?
I'm down. We still want to do it those same dates?
Yeah, we could do same dates. I'm thinking full CDL teams, but none of the pros are answering me. That's another thing, chat. I reached out to the pros. None of them are answering. The only one who answered was Dan Ghosty. I messaged one rep from each team. Nobody answered except for Dan Ghosty. So, you know, I got money on the table for these guys that are not even fucking answering. These pros don't give a fuck. You know, but maybe if I tell them now that it's full teams, maybe they'll respond. Maybe they'll respond if it's full teams because, you know, mid-season, you know what I mean? Mid-season, maybe they want to play with full teams or something. You know what I mean? W Dan Ghosty for answering.
Yeah, why don't we circle back? Why don't we pick one of those 3 dates and we circle back with the exact date and that there's full teams and let's see if people actually respond now.
Well, I want to try this shit. Can you guys beam the guy top server? I want to get bond, run straight the middle, and get the cat to point. Yo, that is insane. That is actually fucked.
This is also one of the final maps that they played here. This is actually a Mercules POV of them playing against the Ravens towards the end of this. And we don't see too many Mercules POV. He doesn't stream all that often. But when you do see him, you know, it does look a little bit different, right? Again, it's just his decision making and also the gunny, right? Like, just rips him out of the window, goes in for the half time. I mean, he doesn't even need to get the final kill or death because they get to 4. So, yeah, you're not going to see a kill like that every day again from Mercules. Alex, of course, also streaming this one I thought was pretty cool. Like, shy way to see him come over to CoD after doing a lot of Halo stuff over the last couple of years. Yeah, wow. Mercules, his POV is just a little bit different. I don't know what it is, but it's incredibly impressive. I mean, even just the awareness, the knowledge to switch to the knife here and go for it, right? Like, I don't understand how he always seems to make the correct decisions. It really is something special watching this kid play at the moment, and it's not like he can't shoot straight either. It's like they said the other day when Formal and I think Dashy were talking about it, and they were trying to compare Mercules to another player and saying that he's effectively Karma, but he just never misses ever. And you know, this gunfight is one, right? Like, you pick up the overload device, or the EMP device, and then you're posted up top window thinking, oh, there's no way Mercules is getting through there. I'm squared up with an M15 and just get ripped out of the window in 4 shots. Yeah, the pistol is godlike, we know, but, like, come on. So the first scrim set against G2, it started off 3-1 against 4 OpTic in the hard points. They lost the Den 250-225, but they won the Scar by actually a very similar scoreline to where they lost it the other day, 250-193. They lost the Den, they won the Colossus, then they won the Exposure. It was a bit more dominant there. So I feel like in both cases, once OpTic really started to warm up, they showed that they're clearly still the better team compared to G2, but G2 aren't totally uncompetitive. The rest of the series, but a couple of the overloads are very close. It was 5-4, 5-1, 5-4 in the 3 overloads that they played. That ended up as a 6-1 series. So, yeah, a couple of them were competitive. The Exposure wasn't quite so much. So G2, I think, are, you know, probably a little bit better than the 6-1 scoreline here suggests. But as we know, OpTic are the team to beat. Then they played Ravens. They didn't end up playing the final overload, it seems, after what happened on the Scar, right? As we saw. But remarkably, they actually did win that Exposure, Ravens, despite what we saw in that clip where, I mean, the thing is, at that point, OpTic were probably just so checked out for what they were dealing with. But anyway, fair play. Ravens somehow, they don't even contest the overload point at the start of the map. They don't even contest the device, and they still somehow find a way to win. But anyway, there was a 100-point club in here on the Exposure hard point. It was a 36-16 for Mercules, who's shocked, 250-93. Again, you can look at the scoreboard, you can see, all right, who's at the top, who's at the bottom. We see Slasher at the bottom of this one, Slasher at the bottom of this one, Slasher was middle of this one. So people are really keeping their eyes on Slasher, aren't they? And I think understandably so, right? Look, I've always been a big Slasher fan for a long time. I still think he has some value to add to the league, but, you know, even I was a bit concerned. This title, this setup with the team, how's it going to go, right? Especially playing with all the rookies and everything. It just feels like Ravens, you can't expect much out of that team this year. I think that's clear. Are they the worst team? You know, they're not far off. I think right now people would probably put Surge down there as well, but Ravens certainly are not going to have the start to the year this time than they did last time out. And questions will tell in due course whether that is really going to work in the long term, because yeah, it's just a strange roster in many ways, but if there's one way you're going to get better, it's practicing against teams like OpTic Texas day in day out if you possibly can, and maybe actually send someone middle on exposure overload to stop Shotzzy just running in the portal straight away. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.